An important part of operations management is productivity and quality. So you can measure an operation system in terms of its productivity, which we'll call efficiency from the next chapter onwards. And that is a ratio of the output of goods and services produced relative to the inputs used to produce them. And usually we say it is expressed as X number of outputs per Y number of inputs. We'll have a look at a little formula to make that a bit simpler in a second. You can also measure an operation system by its quality or effectiveness, and what that means is the degree of excellence in a good or service and its ability to satisfy the customer. So let's just take a look at the productivity of the operation system. How could Coca-Cola measure its productivity? Well, we start with a little formula with the total output produced on top, and we divide that by the total input used to produce it. So we'll get an output of, say, one finished bottle of Coca-Cola. And then it's just a question of which input do we look at to measure our productivity? And that could be anything. So we could say it could be the number of employees or the dollar amount of wages it takes to make one bottle of Coke. It could be the amount of time that it takes to make one bottle of Coke per hour, week, month, and year. The space required in the factory to make it, so how much space does it need to produce, or do we need to produce a bottle of Coke? And also the amount of materials that we need, so not only the quantity, but also the dollars used. What about with a service though, say going to the doctor? How does a business that treats people in a medical center, how does that measure productivity? So again, we just look at total output produced divided by total input, except for this time the output is a treated patient. What are the inputs going to be? Well, it's going to be the same sort of thing. We're going to look at how many patients can we treat per number of doctors and reception staff, etc. How many patients can we treat per hour, week, month, and year? That's a big one for doctors that often book in 15-minute and half-an-hour blocks to try and measure that productivity. How many patients can we see in our clinic based on the size of it? And lastly, what about the dollars, amount of materials, medicines, stationery, and everything like that that we use to treat each patient? Quality or effectiveness, that's a little bit more difficult to measure. It's not a mathematical formula because there's no standard, universal definition of quality. So if we just look at maybe a few different businesses, we'll do Coca-Cola, a doctor's surgery, Toyota, McDonald's, Samsung, and say a hotel. Well, there's lots of different ways to measure quality. We could say it's ultimately the customer satisfaction or complaints. You can measure that by getting customer feedback. Could be the reliability of the product, particularly with a car. Does it break down? Does it last? The speed, not just the speed of a car, but say the speed of the service at McDonald's. The product performance, does the Galaxy last a long time? Does the battery stay charged for a long time the older it gets? Product location, that's a big one for McDonald's. They're everywhere. That is part of their quality. You can find them even when you're not looking for them. Product availability, is there always a range of colors and types and models? Product options, so take the Samsung Galaxy, do we have to get a 32 gig, 64 gig, 256 gig, different cameras, etc. We want options, that's quality. And lastly, flexibility, so say with a hotel, can we change our booking? Can we stay in a different Holiday Inn than the one that we booked for, etc. So, at the end of the day, we want to answer a question. If we looked at two businesses, which operation system is better? So let's take business A. It takes inputs, transforms them into outputs, and we'll say they're making TVs. So they make 400 TVs a day. Each unit costs $173 to make. It's a 5% defect rate. We'll learn what that is in another chapter, but that's how many we have to scrap and throw out of 100. And the product quality by customers is rated at 4 out of 10. Business B also has inputs, transformation, and outputs. It also makes TVs, but it only makes 100 a day. It only makes a quarter of the number of the business A. Each unit costs a lot more to make. We're probably going to sell that for more though, so that's the trade-off. And we only have a 1% defect rate, so we don't make many bad TVs in this factory. And customers love it, so it's rated 9 out of 10 product quality. So the question is, which operation system is better? We can't answer that. We say they're both good at different things. Business A is very productive. Its quality is not as good. Business B is not as productive, but it makes a really good product. And you can apply this to any sort of industry. You could say the productive business in hamburgers is McDonald's, the quality business in hamburgers is Grilled. The productive business in cars is Toyota or Nissan. The quality car maker is, say, Mercedes or Range Rover.